in terms of what he'd have to write in mains and all that. His journey from there to here, he'll be describing about that particular journey. He was always prepared for the main examination, but the preliminary took a year delay for him. So what exactly he did in terms of improvising when the prelims got delayed by a year, in terms of upgrading the mains preparation, so that once you get a chance to write the main examination, you should be in a position to enter into the final list. So what exactly was that strategy where you can upgrade in terms of the quality of your answers, especially because we are starting a few programs which are like combining the prelims and the mains topics. So what exactly should be your plan till February, and then what you have to do subsequently after the preliminary examination? Something like what should be done to get a good score of 800 plus. This would be the strategy. All right. So around first 1 hour, he'll be discussing with you from various answers, various papers, etc. And after that, we will have a question and answer session. During the question and answer session, we would like to take up a few questions from the offline and then from the online students. And if there is a necessity to moderate, I'll do the moderation. All right. And certain things that I'd want to tell about Sai to you. First and foremost, apart from being just an aspirant, he's also a person who's avidly into fitness, and he had focused along with his preparation, his physical and mental health as well. So that is a very important inspiration that we would all want to take from his particular journey, because studying is one part, and during the course of study, there's a lot of stress that a student or an aspirant actually goes through. So what exactly we have to do to tackle all these things, that is also something that I would want to listen to from Sai. All right. So Sai, I'll hand it over to you. So can we give him an applause? Yes. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening to online students. Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful intro. In my journey from there to here, ma'am and Shankar sir have played a pivotal role. And I thank Shankar IAS Academy for this opportunity. So just before starting the session, can I have an idea on, have you written mains before, or is this going to be the first time? First time. Okay. Then I think the session is planned out in such a way that it will be very much useful for the first timers. So the session is mostly going to cover on answer writing approach rather than answer discussion. The session will focus on answer writing approach. So pen. Okay. So, okay, till they make it ready. With regards to content, I think eventually as you progress, you will get the content. But the more important part is that with the content, what are you going to do? The necessary parts are, first thing is understanding the question. And second thing is that we need to break down the question so that we adequately answer all the subparts of the question. And third thing is completion of paper within time. On top of content, if you add all these things, your marks will eventually get enhanced to 800 plus. So, okay. So have you started writing answers over here? How many of you have started writing answers over here? Can you please raise your hands? Okay. On an average, how much time is it taking for a 10 marker? 12 minutes. Okay. For a 15 marker? 20 minutes. Okay. I think it is natural to begin with such a long time, but on an average, the ideal time would be to take 7 minutes for a 10 marker and 11 minutes for a 15 marker. So 7 into 10, you will get 70 minutes, and 11 into 10, 110. So overall, you will be able to complete the paper within 180 minutes, right? Okay. Okay. So let us make the objectives of this session clear. First thing is, this session aims to provide you a new outlook on how to approach the questions. So once we get the question paper, we need to be very sure that we understand the question very well. For that, we need to have a good approach for that. Second thing is to induce strategies apart from mere book knowledge. So what I mean to say by this is that we rely on books and newspaper for majority of our preparation. But along with that, there are certain other parts where throughout our day-to-day activities, we can make our observations, our general awareness on various things as part of a preparation strategy. And we look into it, how it can be developed. And the third thing is that evolution of answers from fundamental points to value addition. So for instance, at this particular stage, when we look at toppers' answers, it might look very much enhanced. But we also need to remember that, including me, we have started writing from very fundamental points, and gradually over practice, we have developed into good value addition, and the answer has become enhanced over a particular point of time. Okay. Initially, before writing an answer, the moment we see the question, how should we approach that? So, in a question, there are two parts. First is the theme, and second is the directive. By means of theme, I mean to say that how does the question correlate with our syllabus? And the second part is the directive. With regards to knowledge base we have, how are we going to apply in the question and make the answer relevant to the question that has been asked? For example, let us take these questions. All the questions that I have taken for this particular session are from 2023 and 2024 Civil Service Examination. In this particular question, distinguish between gender equality A, gender equity B, and women empowerment C. So in the first part of the question, there are three subparts, and the directive that we have mentioned here is distinguish. So my means of distinguish A, B, and C. For example, we are taking apple, oranges, and grapes. If we are asking them to distinguish, we need to compare each and everything, and we need to show what are the differences between the three. Although all the three are among the fruits, but they have certain characteristics that needs to be distinguished. And this will form the first part of the answer. The second part is that why becomes the directive. Why is it important to take gender concerns into account in program design and implementation? So in the second part, they are asking you to give reasons on why we need to take gender concerns into consideration while we design a program. In the second question that we have taken, the West is fostering India as an alternative to reduce dependence on China's supply chain and as a strategic ally to counter China's political and economic dominance. Explain the statement. So in this question, can you identify the theme? The theme is regarding, the broader theme is international relations, but within that, the question is more focused upon China plus one strategy, where in other countries are looking to diversify their supply chains, as well as there is a political realignment with regards to who are their new allies and their partners. So once we identify the theme, we need to focus upon the directive over here. Here the directive is explain this statement. So already there is a statement given here. We need to explain the statement along with examples. By means of examples, we can quote reduce dependence on China's supply chain. There is this new initiative called Supply Chain Resilience Initiative, and as a strategic ally, Quad. So these are the examples that they are expecting. Okay, ma'am. People, how to go back, ma'am? Okay. Okay. Right. So until now, what we have discussed is that first, as soon as we see the question, we need to identify the theme on what is being asked. Second is the directive on how we need to apply the knowledge that we have into a proper answer that needs to be followed. In this particular question, can someone identify the theme? It's okay, you can try, come on. Yes, right, that's it. Citizens Charter. And what are the directives over here? Yes, identify the factors is the first directive. The second one will be suggest measures. That's it. Now, before writing the answer, you have broken down the question into various subparts. You have understood the theme, you have understood the directive. Now, your part is just to write the answer in the relevant manner, right? So, ideally, this question is for 15 marks. Fifteen markers will have 3 sides for it. The first statement, the Citizens Charter has been, okay. An introduction can be given on Citizens Charter, and straight away they have asked to identify the factors hindering the realization of its promise. So, the first subtopic that needs to be identification of factors. Various factors need to be identified. And you have completed 50% of the question, right? The second part should be and suggest measures to overcome them. Measures to overcome them and conclude the answer. So by doing this, you're almost answering every part of the question and the answer will be fulfilled. So the first part is we are seeing the question, identifying the theme and the directive. The second part is to break down the question into various subparts so that we do not miss any subpart that has been asked. Every subpart has its own value. For example, in this particular question, critically analyze is the directive. Second part, evolving diplomatic, economic and strategic relations with Central Asian Republic. This particular part is the theme, highlighting their increasing significance in regional and global geopolitics. So in this particular question, there are in fact 6 key terms along with the directive. We cannot afford to miss even a single keyword. These 6 are diplomatic, economic, strategic and Central Asian Republic, along with regional and global geopolitics. Once we identify these subparts, it will be easy for us to structure our answer in a particular way so that entire demand of the question is fulfilled, right? Let us take 2 sides for 10 marker. You can give an introduction regarding this. And second, diplomatic. The content that you know. For example, India Central Asia Virtual Summit that has been held, and economic ties. How India is having various agreements with Central Asia, how is the trade developing in the region, and strategic. By means of strategic, you can bring out INSTC and all the relevant content that you know. Along with that, increasing significance in regional and global geopolitics. How is it important in regional? And how is it important in global? But the answer does not end here. The reason being that they have asked us to critically analyze. So when they ask us to critically analyze, there are challenges as well with India and Central Asian relationships, right? So we need to point out those challenges, and since this is a 10 marker, there would be space constraint, but still if you find 1 or 2 lines, since you have written challenges, it is better that we add way forward for it, or solutions on how we can tackle the present crisis or present distance between India and Central Asian relationships, right? The second question, let us try to structure this as well. Identify and discuss the factors responsible for diversity of natural vegetation in India. Identify A and discuss B is the part 1 of the question. Part 2, assess the significance of wildlife sanctuaries in forest regions of India. This is the part 2. Right. So what happens in these kind of questions is that over due course of preparation, we would have gained much knowledge and content for this first part, diversity of natural vegetation in India. Am I right? So what tends to happen is that we tend to write a little bit more content and stretch it over 2 sides for the first part of the question. But at times what happens is that both subparts of the question have equal weightage. So until this part 1 and until this part 2. When we stretch the part 1 question into part 2, we may get the same marks, but we are compromising on the necessary part that is required for part 2. So in these kind of questions, especially when there are 2 parts or 3 parts, we need to make sure that there is adequate space for every subpart given. Since we might know a little bit more content on part 1, it is not necessary that we need to compromise on the part 2 of the question. Okay. Can someone try on how to structure this particular question? What can be the part 1 of this particular question? Yes. They are asking you to explain the structure of parliamentary committee system. That's it. So what all can be under this? There are ad hoc committees, there are permanent committees, there is DRSC, department related standing committees. And secondly, what can be the second part of the question? Yes. How far, we need to take this into consideration, how far have the financial committees helped in institutionalization of Indian Parliament? So part 1 we have understood. Part 2 is how far have the financial committees helped in institutionalization of Indian Parliament? So in this questions, there seems to be only 2 parts, but we also need to understand that they have asked how far. So it is not necessarily that 100% of its utility has been used. There might be some gaps in financial committees. For example, their recommendations are not binding, and the heavy bulky nature of the documents might take a lot of time which the parliamentary committees cannot afford. So in this first part it is explicit, but in second part we need to make sure that we do mention the positives of financial committees, but along with that there is also need to mention the necessary or the existing challenges that are present in complete efficiency of financial committees. So even though there are 2 subparts asked explicitly, we need to take forward by adding another subpart mentioning challenges. And it will be even great if you can add few suggestions by some expert committees or your own suggestions which are relevant to make these financial committees more effective. Okay. Can you guys try how to break down this question? All the parts are given directly. You just need to identify that. What can be the part 1 of this answer? Yes, that's it. You have started to identify what are the subparts. What is the status of digitalization in Indian economy, right? What is the second subpart? Examine the problems faced in this regard and suggest improvements. They have made it very clear. Part 1, they are asking what is the status. So we need to give out certain data or certain statistics that can support the status of digitalization. How far has it been digitalized in Indian economy in rural areas, in urban areas, across various age groups, how far has it succeeded? And the second part of the question, they have asked, examine the problems faced. Usually what happens is that at times, this suggests improvements are not explicitly given. Just the problems faced are asked. And to gain that extra half a mark or an edge, we do add the improvements at the last part of the answer. But here they have asked explicitly. So the demand of the question is part 1, what is the status? Part 2A is the problems. Part 2B is the solutions. So, and good ideal answer would look like introduction, answering the part 1, part 2A, part 2B, and concluding the answer. Are we on track? Okay. So I would want you all to give 2 minutes of time and just read this particular thing. It is from UPSC notification. It is from official UPSC notification regarding mains examination. Just spare a 1 minute on this and observe all the points that they are demanding from us as candidates. Let me try to simplify this for you. The first part says that it is not merely the range of information and memory. It is not just reading data and just putting it on paper, but rather it is the overall intellectual traits and depth of understanding. To support that first paragraph, we would say this: what is the status of digitalization in the Indian economy? When we talk about this, there is one part where we can just dump the data, so and so, 46% or whatever. But a step ahead is what UPSC expects. It is the interpretation of data that is being expected in this particular question. And in the second paragraph, the nature and standard of questions from GS 1 to 4 is such that well-educated person will be able to answer without any specialized study, and the questions will be as such to test candidates' general awareness. To support these points, there are questions in the upcoming slide, but let us just absorb these statements on a variety of subjects which will have relevance for career in civil services. Okay. Understand the last 3 points. The candidates must give relevant, meaningful, and succinct answers. So by means of relevant is what we discussed by theme in the first slide. The answer should be relevant to the theme that has been asked. Second, meaningful. By means of meaningful, it is about the structure and directive that we have discussed right now. Right? Only when we understand the directive, we can give meaningful answers. When they are asking us to critically examine, we cannot just go on explaining the statement, right? We also need to talk about the critical analysis part of it, the concerns or challenges present in the given particular theme. And third is succinct answers. By means of it, it's asking to put your thoughts in a very clear manner. It need not be very complicated English. It might be simple yet effective language that is being expected. Yes. So in the earlier part, they had mentioned a term about general awareness. This was the question that has been asked in 2024 mains. First, let us try to break down the question based on the previous slides that we did. Can we start? So what can be the first part of this answer? Yes, correct. What is the technology being employed for electronic toll? Part 1, right? Okay, so now after reading part 1 itself, we are getting an understanding. Okay, the theme is about probably FASTAG or road toll collection, right? We are getting the theme. So we need to orient our minds towards that. Second part, what can be the second part? Yes, second part has two subparts, right? Advantages and limitations. Am I right? What can be the third part? Proposed changes. But the question does not end here. There is another subpart. Would this transition carry any potential hazards? So in this question, there are 4 subparts being a 10 marker. Even if we miss one of the subpart, there are good chances that 2.5 marks of the answer has not been answered relevantly, right? So first we need to make sure that all the subparts are identified, the theme is identified, and coming on the preparation strategy, how can this question be answered? One is that we can refer to some current affairs and get to know about the particular thing. But second, I think almost everyone would have traveled by road, right? So when we travel by road, we need to have that little bit curiosity and awareness to see that, okay, a car is going there and immediately there's some kind of scanning that is being taken place. Why is it so efficient that the government has adopted it? So when we start to think upon that, it will take just an extra minute to Google about FASTAG. So when we Google about FASTAG, we get to know about the technology. They have asked what is the technology. So that time we get to know that it is called as RFID, radio frequency identification, right? When you start taking that one little extra step, spending that 1 or 2 minutes on the general awareness and the surroundings that you are in, you get to understand the topics at a little bit more better way. So your preparation becomes more holistic. It is not merely restricted to books. And secondly, yes, the FASTAG is good, but there are certain issues if we think about FASTAG. For example, if the road is for 20 kilometers, and even though we are traveling only for 2 or 3 kilometers, there are chances that we need to pay toll for the entire distance. So what the government is coming up with is that there is a possibility of replacing FASTAG with new satellite-based toll collection system. This is an article that has been put in March 29, 2024. And this was September 2024. This is not to say that because of these articles, this particular question popped up, but rather when we come across such articles in newspaper, when students ask about how to read newspaper, it is these kind of articles that we need to be vigilant about. So these are the potential questions that can be asked. So our knowledge is not just about books and newspaper, it is also about that extra step that we take in our day-to-day lives, right? Am I making sense till now? Second thing, curiosity. How many of you have seen your friends post this picture? Can you please raise your hand? Okay. I think around 25 to 30 to 40% are raising your hands, right? So this phenomenon is aurora. This is something which is not visible from our part of the world, right? But this is something fascinating. If we take that one particular minute to just Google about that, we are getting the answer for this particular question. One way is to read via geography books, what is aurora, but it becomes more the same manner. At times there that we might skip this particular topic. But while seeing these kind of phenomenon, we just need to take that 1 minute and Google about it to know more about it. For example, recently also yesterday and today we are seeing bioluminescence in Chennai beach, right? I think for viewing it is very nice, but if we take that 1 minute and just Google about it, we'll get to know that there is this particular luciferin chemical involved. These are the questions where it will be asked in prelims as well as mains. So we are diversifying our preparation. Yes, it is true that majorly we rely on books, newspaper and everything. But apart from that, at least 5% if we spend on diversifying our knowledge from various sources and going that step forward to get this curiosity, you will be able to answer many such questions. These are only few questions that I am able to display, but by means of this, you will be able to answer at least 2 questions in the entire question paper. Yes. Looking out for major developments and statements by okay. This was the question asked in 2024 mains, right? Okay. The question is, okay. Let us go by our structure part. What are asteroids? I'm sure we would have read this in science and technology, right? What are asteroids? Second part is, how real is the threat of them causing extinction of life? When they ask to read current affairs, this is the current affairs that they are meaning. Part 1 is, what are asteroids? This is from the static topic, but how real is the threat of them causing extinction of life? Third, what strategies have been developed to prevent such a catastrophe? If we look a little bit deep into this topic, there was in almost every media outlet quoted this particular article from ISRO chairman. He states that asteroid hitting the earth is a real possibility, and he also names this particular asteroid. So again, the idea behind this is not to say that just because of this article this question has popped up, but while reading newspapers, how can we make it more relevant to our preparation is the idea behind it. So whenever there is an important statement by any particular minister, be it Ministry of Civil Aviation, he has termed that their main motto is to make air travel affordable for all. So our idea should immediately orient that, okay, this might be a possible mains question. Why is air travel costly? What are the various steps that we have taken to improve the infrastructure with regards to airports? There is Digiyatra, there is modernization of airport in various means. So by means of this, whenever there is an important statement by any stakeholder, be it any particular minister who is responsible for this governance or any particular chairperson such as ISR or DRDO, we need to take that little bit more caution upon it and see to that how it can be made relevant to our preparation strategy. Okay, now coming to the importance of PYQ. We often hear that we need to rely upon PYQ to understand how UPSC asks questions or which are the parts that we need to focus upon more. So to show that, there are a few questions that I have taken. So first, what happens with PYQ is that it enables you to understand the depth of knowledge that is being expected from us as candidates. Second, it helps us to identify the parts that have been asked already in the exam, and also what are the parts that might possibly arise and where we can be more prepared upon that. Let us take this situation. Here, can you just identify the theme in this question? Vedic society, right? Vedic society. Once you have identified, supposedly you are preparing for 2024 exam and you have identified this theme. So what happens is that you give a little bit more importance to this particular part and study regarding it. You can see the similar theme has been repeated again in 2024. So this is one of the advantage of understanding and knowing more about PYQs. What I would suggest is that before reading any topic, it is advisable that first we go and look out for PYQs. I'm not saying we have to write answers, but we need to just have a glance upon PYQs so that we can orient our preparation in a particular direction that is more relevant to the exam. So the suggested format would be, first, before starting any topic, we need to go and look at the PYQs. And after that, we need to read that topic. The third step would be to attempt those answers based upon our knowledge that we have gained over the few days that we have read upon the topic. Again, there is another example. In this, can we identify the theme? Land reforms. Again, 2023, 2024. Land reforms. Although this kind of repetition is only 2 among probably the 70 or 80 questions that UPSC asks, but still 15 and 10, at least 25 marks we are securing beforehand, right? In mains examination, every mark is important because an addition of plus or minus 5 marks can boost your rank very much high and very much low as well. It can change your service. So in this context, analyzing the PYQs and making sure that every mark is given necessary importance is very much crucial. Okay. So finally, theme identification. We've been talking about theme, but how do we identify themes from the previous year questions? Here, globalization is the theme. Second is increased migration, skilled, young, unmarried women. So here the another theme is women from various classes. But the real question starts here. How has this trend impacted upon their personal freedom and relationship with family? This question from the outside seems it has many parts upon it, but once we start breaking it down, we can feel it more simplified. For example, here, the broader theme is women, but they are focusing upon not all the women, but skilled women, skilled women, and young women, and unmarried women. So they are asking us to focus upon only this section of women, right? So our answer also must be relevant to it. And based upon this, they are asking, how has this trend impacted upon their personal freedom, A, and relationship with family? So an ideal answer, this since is the 15 marker, would look like Introduction. Then, how globalization has been impacting their personal freedom. Can we get 1 or 2 points on how globalization has been impacting personal freedom of this particular section of women? You can try. Correct. Personal freedom. They have got additional responsibility of balancing both work and household. What else has been the consequence? Financial independence, right? They have more autonomy to make their own choices, right? That's it. We have got 2 points. Some more. Personal freedom. Cultural shock. Okay, we'll have that. Cultural shock. But your point is good. We need to make sure that how it can be related to this personal freedom. Personal freedom. The right to marry a person of their own choice. They're getting more freedom to marry a person of their own choice, right? That can be another. How has it changed the relationship with family? You'd have seen your neighbors or your own sisters, they have been moving from a particular place to another place. How has it impacted the nature of the family? Yes. It's okay, come on. Right. So there is a generational change that has been seen in the families, correct? There has been a generational change. Another thing is that the strict patriarchy has been broken. Am I right? Earlier, there was only patriarchy, but it is now shifting towards more gender neutral or gender equal decisions. Am I right? And what else has been the relationship? Until now, we have talked about the positives, but there is also a need to mention about certain negatives that have happened because of this. For example, there has been isolation of old age people. Am I right? Since people are migrating, there has been isolation of old age people. So, mental health issues for old age people. Second, how has their relationship changed with family? The structure of family has been broken. Earlier it was joint family, now it has been reducing to nuclear families, right? So this is how we generate points with the simple knowledge that we know, but making it relevant to the question. And from this question, how can we alter or how can we make our preparation better is that being aware of the various dimensions that are present. So here we started with women. Now we are understanding that, okay, they are asking about skilled, young, unmarried women. What can be the various classification among women? One is rural women and urban women. Can you name another? Literate and illiterate women. Am I right? Right. Then skilled, unskilled. Yes. Very correct. Skilled, unskilled. Then wonderful. Young, middle age, older. Is there any other sub-classification that we can make? Married, unmarried. Right? Rich and poor. Correct. I can add one more dimension that is more relevant to this. Digitally literate women who are having knowledge on latest digital technology and digitally illiterate women. So when we start doing this in our preparation strategy, are we not adding more and more dimensions to our preparation? And also, there are possibilities that now they have clubbed skilled young unmarried women. There are possibilities that they can combine young, unmarried, and poor women. What are the challenges that they are facing? What are the government schemes that are that can be given to them for their welfare, right? So this particular diversification of points can be done for almost every topic that we do. So the advantage of PYQ and identifying the themes is reiterating the same point. We get to understand what has been the theme that has been asked by UPSC. Secondly, we can orient our preparation towards more diversification on similar lines. Okay. So I'll just summarize what we have discussed till now. First, we discussed on as soon as we see the question, how to approach that. There are two parts. First is to identify the theme, and second is to understand the directive that has been asked. By means of directive, we mean to say that whether they have asked challenges, whether they are asking us to explain the statement, whether they are asking us to critically examine. So that will be the first part. Then the second part is writing of actual answer. Before writing, we need to structurize the answer in a particular way so that we do not miss any of the subparts. Am I right till now? Yes. So second part would be to structurize the answer. Third part that we saw is what is the expectation given by UPSC in their notification and how that can be applied to our style of preparation. One is that we can cover more topics with a more conceptual clarity than just mere mugging up of the data or just rote memory. And fourth is that we have seen how we can include general awareness, curiosity, and everything as part of a preparation strategy. Now, the real part comes, building an answer. So until now, we have discussed how to write an answer, everything. But once we start to put pen on paper, the real part comes. This is a question taken from 2024. Can you identify the two subparts, important subparts that have been asked in this question? Or rather, two themes that have been asked in this question? Yes, that's it. You have nailed this particular question, right? So the theme is Cholas, art and architecture. That's it. Once you identify this, the initial part is done very well. Second, we start writing this answer. Since this is probably among the first time you are writing this answer, we'll start with certain fundamental points. The Cholas, a kingdom belong. This can be the introduction. Just stating that, how are you relating this? How are you opening the topic? Southern part of India ruled from 19th to 13th century. This is a general point, but how are we relating it to the question? Made significant contribution to the field of art and architecture. This can be a simple introduction for this question. It is relevant. We are coming to the second part, identifying the subparts, art and architecture. This is part 1. This is part 2. That's what they've asked, right? Art and architecture. Based upon the learnings that you have are already known, just build upon that. Deep spiritual connect and religious symbolism. Just take a minute and read all these points. Just have an idea. Right. Once we are done with these points, we are just concluding the answer. By means of conclusion, there is no need for much complication. But by means of conclusion, what we are meaning to convey to the examiner is, until now I've written something. What is that final line that I would like to give? It can be a summary of this, or it can be taking forward this particular answer, or it can be some kind of data that can be given. Now, let us see how an answer can evolve over the due course of time. Same question, but see the introduction. The Chola Empire was founded by, we are mentioning the ruler's name, time period, introduction. Look at this, the first subpart. Almost similar point, but we are adding an example. This is called as value addition. So this is how we develop the answer from A, B, C. This is the first time that we write. After writing, we get to see the key, we get to understand the question more. Again, when similar kind of question is asked, our answer will evolve from just fundamental points to fundamental points plus value addition. Now, look at all these points. It is almost the same points that were written in the earlier slide, right? See, all the same points written in the earlier slide. But for every point, there is a substantiation with by means of example and also by quoting the ruler's name who are belonging to Cholas. Are we done with this slide? Can we move on to next one? We are adding a diagram. This is the third layer probably. Along with examples, we are adding a diagram. This can be done. Right? So this is adding another layer to your particular answer. And similarly for architecture, we are adding examples for every architecture. And by means of point diversification, what happens is that at times when they ask architecture, based upon our knowledge, we at times confine it only to temple architecture. But architecture can be in multiple facets as well. It can be public utility buildings. Architecture can be in dams. Right. So there is where diversification takes place. Palace, dams. And look at this conclusion. So are we understanding how our answer can evolve from one particular phase to another particular phase? But a small word of caution that needs to be given at this point is that when we start writing answers, our expectation will be like this. But what we might end up is like that. But we need to be cognizant of the fact that everyone starts from that particular stage and evolves into this particular stage. It is not that we start writing answers like this. So we also need to set realistic expectations and need to progress throughout our answer writing. So this is where the actual evolution takes place. This may not be the perfect answer, but it has evolved from the previous answer. Am I right? Similarly, every topic will be like this. You will start writing answers like this. This is the first fundamental step. But as we study more content, as we get to understand the question better, we will be able to diversify points and give answers like these. So my request would be, let this be, or value addition and fundamental points be your expectation, but make sure that you build it in a proper progressive manner. Right. So until now we have discussed GS1, GS2, GS3. At least there has been an overview on various questions that can be asked, right? Now comes the GS4 part, ethics. So I have taken questions from 2023 and 2024. From a personal point of view, I feel that the questions asked in 2023 were a bit different from 2024. The objective is to show that how ethics question can be asked in various formats. For example, this is the 2023. These are the 2023 questions, right? There are three questions that has been put forward. The similar kind of theme, directive, and structuring can be applied here. Can someone help me in structuring this question 1A by identifying the subparts?
corporate governance and moral integrity can be one part, and corporate governance and professional efficiency can be another part.
Excellent. That's it. So first part can be moral integrity in corporate governance, right? Second part can be professional efficiency in corporate governance. But the answer does not end here. It is giving illustrate with suitable examples. If not for every point, at least for this particular subpart, we need to give certain examples. It can be any corporate that you see best practice among them. So this will be the first question. Next, 6A. Can someone help me in breaking down this question? Yes, that's it. What were the major teachings of Guru Nanak? First part. Second part. That's it. Second. What is its relevance? So, in the first part, we are identifying the values. In the second part, by means of the same values that we have identified, we are telling how is it relevant even in the current context. Right? Another final question. Explain the term social capital. Part 1. Part 2. How does this enhance its governance? So, relatively, the structure and identifying the various subparts have been relatively easier in 2023. I'll show you the 2024 questions. Just take half a minute and read this question. Are we done? So, in 2023, the questions were more direct. It was easier for us to identify the structure and various subparts. But here, there is a little bit more attention that needs to be given. Let us look into this question. This is not the actual question, but it is directing you towards a particular direction, right? It is just showing you, okay, the question is about peace. Okay, again, in the present context, the major weapon industries, again, this is not the question that it asks. It is just directing you towards a particular direction. From the direction that you have gained upon this, the actual question starts here. Right? The actual question is, what are the ethical considerations of the powerful nations in today's international arena to stop continuation of ongoing conflicts? This is the actual question. But to answer this, we need to be relevant to the above three statements that have been given. Again, let us take another question. Spend half a minute and read this. Right, in this particular question, similar to this, these three statements give us a particular direction. But in this, we need to make sure that these keywords are identified. The actual question starts here. How will this scheme empower the civil servants in enhancing productive efficiency and delivering the services at the grassroots level? So, In 2024, what has been seen is that the tone of the question has been set by the examiner, by the question paper setter itself in the first 2 or 3 lines. Then later the question has been asked. So our duty is to answer this question, but keeping in mind these particular statements. Right? I'll give a small illustration over here. As of now, leave this part, just read this particular line alone. What are the ethical considerations of powerful nations in today's international arena? Continuation of ongoing conflict. Can give various points like moral responsibility, principle of just war, and having good means towards right ends, war for maintaining peace. But we also need to make sure that the question has been asked about major weapon industries. So the answer should include parts regarding trade of arms, the need for maintaining our loyalty towards commitments, for example, arms trade TT should be followed. All those points, if we just read this particular question, we may not add up more points like that. But once we make sure that the particular directive, this is the directive of this question, we make sure that the directive is focused upon, we answer this particular question based upon this directive. Are we getting it? So these are the possible two styles of questions in ethics. One is they can give you the question directly, we need to answer accordingly. Second, the tone of the question and the answer is set already. We need to make sure that our points are aligned with the tone. And one small suggestion from my end in how to prepare ethics is that while reading ethics and especially while attempting ethics answers, ethics will be the last paper of general studies, right? So what happens is that naturally what is within us will be exhibited in the paper. So while reading, we need to take that additional step and make sure that we are absorbing the content in a very organic manner. At sometimes in times of case study, it is better that we have a little bit more empathetic approach and practical one, which we have. Rather than just reading the data or content, it is necessary that we need to take up the content within ourselves and reproduce in a very relevant manner. So this was about the slideshow. I hope it was relevant to you. I think if there are any doubts, we'll move on to that.
Offline students, do you have any questions? So I repeat the question so that the online students.
Okay, ma'am.
Actually, like segregated the questions in one.
Right.
Is that mandatory to write according to like first part papers? We can also like write in the mixed manner. Like
Okay. Right. The question from the candidate was that if there are 2 subparts or 3 subparts, whether we need to answer it accordingly, like the order that has been given in the question. It is advisable that we answer the question in the particular order because there would be a particular meaning on why they have organized the question in a manner, right? So it is advisable that we answer the question in the order that they have given. Did I answer your doubt? Because at times they would have asked the problems first and second they would have asked the measures regarding it, right? In case we add the measures first and then add the problems in the next part, it wouldn't make much of relevance. Right.
in that we first have to write about the Guru Nanak and then we have to relevant it with the contemporary. rather than that, can we also write in the way that we can mix, like we can relate it along with the first answer?
Okay. In that particular question, they themselves have asked in two parts. First, they have asked the teachings of Guru Nanak. So first, we need to mention the teachings that have been said by Guru Nanak. Second, they have asked about the relevance. So in that particular part, you just need to add those values, what has been taught by Guru Nanak, and add the relevance in the subsequent part. That will make make your answer more orderly in fashion.
And also, this is like a different.
Right.
While writing, while seeing the question, we don't get that much of points while writing. Maybe it may be very complicated question.
Right.
So in that, like, what is the strategy to fill all the pages?
Right. So the question again posed by the candidate was that at times there are certain questions where we are not able to diversify the points. How can that be done? First, I would suggest that instead of doing the diversification part during the time of exams, I had suggested to practice PYQs beforehand. So while practicing PYQs, for example, we saw in that women topic how diversification can take place, right? How diversification can take place. So before writing a particular mock test, it is advisable that one needs to work upon PYQs. And from the PYQs, we start to diversify our answer. We might have just 2 dimensions, but during the time of practice, we might get 4. But during the exam, that 4 might become 5. And after writing the exam also, your duty does not end there. We also need to check upon the key. That is where additional 2 dimensions take place. So it is like a cyclic process whereby one keeps on practicing before the exam and implement during the exam, and again course correction after the exam. Once you do this cycle very religiously, all the diversification takes place.
Like, and also, like, how can we fill the pages? Maybe if in case in exam.
Okay. Rather than filling pages is important, but we need to make the content relevant also, right? Just not for the sake of filling, we cannot do it. But at times what happens is that we might want our answer to look very professional, very much relevant. By doing that, we tend to miss the simple points that are around us, yet they are relevant. So at that point, we need to become a little bit more relaxed and look upon for things that are around us. For example, take that FASTAG question. Immediately after saying that, you might want to give more technological terms on how RFID works. But let us go for the simple. What are the advantages? It eases the travel. It reduces the travel time. So, and you can diversify your points, and you also, like as you said, you can fill the pages with relevant content. And for the same question, we can focus FASTAG on how it helps normal passengers, how it helps private logistics term, how it helps the government forces. So that is where the diversification takes place.
Online students, you can post your questions onto your chat box so that we can moderate it. Offline students, do you have any other questions?
Sir, so while writing optional, you have a technical kind of writing, paragraphical method, and you kind of try to write it in a little more complex language. But when you write GS answers, to the point, crisp, you have to write it with examples and value addition. So when you do both, sometimes the influence of your optional comes into your GS writing and vice versa. So how do you like don't overlap it?
Okay. So the question posed by the candidate was that there is a little bit different style of writing in optional and for GS. How do we make sure that there is no particular overlap, right? I would say that even if there is overlap, there is not much of concern, because in case you are a sociology or anthropology optional student, you will have certain points where you can use in society. Similarly, if you are from PSI or optional, you can use those points in IR related questions. But one caution I would say that we need to make sure is that instead of using more technical terms in the answer, we need to effectively use those terms. For example, if I'm from a sociology or anthropology optional, for the society question, I would use terms such as gender equality, double burden of women, or skip generation families, but by making sure that the meaning is conveyed to the examiner. So there is not much of effort, but ultimately what we need to focus upon is that whether we are conveying the meaning properly to the examiner.
So does it come with practice, or I have to like try writing both parallelly and make sure that I don't overlap it, or is it okay if it
I think by the due course of time, once you write more tests, I think it will be good enough. It will be all right. So I don't think this is a major concern.
There is one question. How do you ensure that unknown questions in mains are handled? What do you do to handle those kind of questions?
Okay. I think every year, approximately for every GS paper, there will come 1 or 2 unknown questions. But whether it is really unknown is the actual question, because the theme might be known to us, but the specific points might not be known to us. So in that case, it is not advisable to leave the question as such and come, but write relevant content regarding it, whatever we know, based upon the broad ideas that we have. It does not account to bluffing. Bluffing is that you artificially generate some points which are not actually relevant to the question. But we need to make sure that we attempt the answer, but whatever knowledge that we have, we need to stretch it for a 1 page or a half a page and move on to next questions. And at times, if there is an unknown question, there is a high possibility that it might be unknown for remaining candidates as well. So at that point, we need to focus upon the larger picture, where there are 18 to 19 questions that are very much known to us. So we need to attempt all the known questions in the first phase. And finally, if there are 5 or 10 minutes extra, that is the point where we need to answer the unknown questions, but in a relevant fashion with the limited knowledge.
Your journey of answer writing, could you share some ways in which you improved your answers across the years?
Right. So I focus on quantitative as well as qualitative writing. My answer writing preparation started in 2020, I would say. So there was this instruction given by my faculty saying that post Diwali you need to write answer every day until Pongal. So I follow at that time I was just blindly following whatever the faculty or my mentor had told me. So I would suggest that, especially now it is the good time to start answer writing. Start writing an answer every day. Just spend 15 minutes for it. Write an answer, and preferably it would be to write a PYQ. Write that and Google upon it. Add few more qualitative points. And by the course of it, if you follow it for say 90 to 100 days, every day if you write, there are 100 questions that one can cover. And once this is done, I think you will move on to the next prelims phase. And positively, when mains comes, I think you can go on with the test series. But fundamentally, one needs to start practicing answer writing with PYQs and then move on to mock answers.
Okay. What about essay preparation? How to prepare quotes for ethics and essay?
I would say that ethics and essay preparation is kind of converged, and more or less the knowledge that we have in ethics can be used in essay and vice versa as well. So for especially talking about essay, I would suggest that from 2018 or 2017, take down all the topics, identify the relevant themes that have been asked. For example, there are themes such as courage, dedication, there are themes such as mathematics, and just identify that and start brainstorming essay. I would suggest probably 1 or 2 essays every week. Spend around 30 minutes, 20 minutes for just brainstorming about the essay. And once you're done brainstorming, Google about that particular topic. You will get additional 5 to 6 points where you can add the content. And upon that, take one example for that particular topic from the internet. And by doing so, if you do it for 20 particular themes, by the end of 3 or 4 months, you would have got brainstorm points for around 20 topics of essay. And examples around 40 that can be used in multiple essays that have been asked. So an ideal way to start essay is that take 1 or 2 topics from PYQs and try brainstorming it for 30 minutes, 1 or 2 in a particular week. And with regards to quote based questions, I think the candidate has asked about the 3 particular code-based questions that will be asked in essay, ethics every year. And the nature of questions have been that what does this quotation mean to you in the present context? And it is more about diversifying the points. For example, a particular quote can be applied in economics, how it is relevant in the field of business, marketing, how we need to be ethical in marketing, and it can be relevant in international affairs. I'm not having a quote to show that via illustration, but generally any topic can be diversified in the following. How does it be more relevant in international relations? How does the quote be more relevant in political arena? What are the ethical terms that have been given in the quote that can be used in politics? And fourth can be in our personal lives. How does this quote apply to us in our personal lives? For example, I would like to say this quote by Gandhiji: be the change you want to see in that world, right? So I would like to say in the personal life, how am I implementing this quote? And how would this apply in economics? A particular brand can set an example and saying that this is the change I want to see. I want my brand to be more environment friendly. So it can be applied like that. And second thing is that there are certain quotes which will be but in one direction. You can give an alternate perspective to that, saying that, okay, this quote need not always hold true. There is an alternate perspective as well. And by means of that, I think the quote-based questions can be diversified.
Is it advisable to attempt bouncers first or go with well-known questions or vice versa?
Okay. I think it is more advisable to answer the known questions first because that is your strong area. The major point is that you need to collect as much as marks as possible. So in doing that, first we need to attempt the known questions first, and we need to make sure that everything is attempted in a relevant fashion. And as I said a few minutes ago, the bouncer questions or the questions that are not known to candidate can be attempted in the last. And also what happens is that once we start completing more and more questions, we get a sense of confidence that we are towards the end. We have done well in the particular previous questions. So with that confidence, there are chances that new ideas may come to the fore which did not appear in the initial stage. And by using that confidence and the relevant knowledge, we can attempt the bouncer or the unknown questions at the last. So this would be my suggested method.
Offline students, questions வேற ஏதாவது இருக்குங்களா? தமிழ்ல comfortable இருக்கீங்கன்னா you can ask in Tamil as well. That is not an issue. Sir will answer.
Okay. So the candidate asked that in our presentation we had shown a particular question on Mission Karma Yogi. So what if suppose we do not have any idea on Mission Karma Yogi? In that aspect, I think it is little difficult to answer the question because the major theme is about Mission Karma Yogi. But in case if one wants to get that at least 1 or 2 marks, the question also had parts regarding efficiency, effectiveness, what is required at the grassroots level. So broadly, one can talk about the challenges that are present in the current system, whereby there is less of efficiency, or what are the challenges at the grassroots level, and you can leave the answer over there. I think. Right. Okay. So usually what happens is that the questions are as such that they ask more familiar schemes. As in Mission Karma Yogi has been in news. If we are into mains preparation, it has been in news regarding efficiency in administration, capacity building. So I would say 90% or so, the themes or the schemes will be more familiar to us. But just in case, if the schemes or the particular bill is not familiar to us as well, we need to make sure that although the schemes are given, we can identify what theme is it as. For example, whether the scheme is on agriculture, whether the scheme is on insurance, whether it is regarding public examinations. So on broader context, we can write what are the challenges present in the current agricultural setup and make it little bit relevant to the answer. But we need to make sure that we answer only a little part and not bluffing for the entire 2 or 3 pages. By that, I think at least one can get minimum marks for the particular answer. Did I answer your question?
Apart from standard books, what sources should we use for mains answer enrichment?
I would suggest that having a good reading on newspapers, especially one particular newspaper of your choice, which is more relevant in the market. By reading newspapers, what happens is that right now we have shown in slides at least 3 articles we have shown that which have been relevant to the questions asked. So apart from the standard books, spending at least 30 minutes every day in newspapers will help us gain that additional knowledge, and by means of which also we are covering current affairs. So I would say that especially when we have limited time, say 90 or max 100 days for mains preparation, apart from standard books, it is advisable to read newspapers. Okay. You mean to say that how can we Okay. So the question by the candidate was that how to reduce the time taken for a particular answer, right? Is there any method by which we can follow? For example, if you are taking 10 minutes right now for 10 markers, how to reduce it to 7 minutes? Am I right? So what happens is that by practice, you get more familiar with the themes, and the point generation occurs at a much faster pace. And secondly, the extra time takes place when we start thinking about a particular point for much longer time. So to prevent stagnation while during a particular answer, I think practice is very much necessary for that. At times what happens is that we keep studying and directly appear in the exam. There might be an inertia for us, but in the same case, before appearing for the exam, in the preceding week, if we are practicing 2 or 3 questions daily, our mind gets oriented towards a particular topic, and the points generation are much faster in the practice. So with that same momentum, if we come and give that exam, the time taken for answering a particular question will automatically reduce. So I would suggest that keep practicing one question, writing a full answer, and 2 or 3 questions, just brainstorm and keep it in a particular notebook. You can refer it as well for the future purpose.
They've asked regarding optionals.
Okay, this session was primarily planned for general studies. I think optional we can have it on another day with detailed explanation. However, the thing I would like to say regarding optional is that one is to be conceptually very sure about what we are reading. I think the conceptual clarity and the deeper understanding of the topic is necessary. And secondly, I would suggest that apart from the standard books that we are reading, I was from anthropology optional background. So for anthropology in particular, there were sources from IGNU, where I was getting more content that is more relevant to the exam. So whatever optional you are in, if there are any specific sources like IGNU where you can get more deeper content, it is advisable that we spend a bit of time reading that and taking points for that.
What is a good time to start writing our answer writing practice?
Okay, I would say yesterday was the best date and today is the second best date. But on a practical note, I think from today one can start writing answers, because everyone is having the dream to crack 2025 attempt, right? For that we need to be equipped with all the ammunitions that are required. So I would say start writing the answers from today. It might seem a little bit laborious, but try writing an answer every day, at least till January 15th, I would suggest, because post January 15th, since everyone is first timer or second timer in this particular exam, you would need post January 15 for prelims preparation entirely. So at least before January 15, practically take one PYQ. Just spend 15 minutes or 20 minutes per day. Just write one PYQ. So by the end of from today, probably January 15 is approximately 90 days away. If you can stretch that to 90 days, 90 questions, or rather 90 days, 100 questions, imagine you are covering similar quantity that is equivalent to 5 GS papers, because every GS paper has 20 questions. So by means of that, by in 3 months time, you are organically building your answer, you are developing the structure, and as one candidate asked, you are diversifying the points, and as well you are doing in a very limited time. So I would suggest that from today or If you want a particular timeline, I would say from Diwali. On Diwali, one can start answer writing, and yeah, every day I think one can start writing answers.
Is it okay to brainstorm daily instead of writing actually?
Okay. I think both needs to go hand in hand. For writing, one question a day would be sufficient, because only by brainstorming what happens is that we keep our mind active, but only when we write we will understand what is the challenge or what can be done when we need to establish that connection between mind and hand. So I would suggest writing one answer daily is advisable. Apart from that, brainstorming is a very good exercise that can be done for 2 or 3 questions, but not at the cost of compromising your writing an answer every day. So both should go hand in hand, in my opinion. Presentation? Okay. The candidate has asked that how to improve upon the presentation. So with regards to presentation, what I feel is that presentation is how you clearly put forward your points. One is that we can focus upon spacing of the points. Second is that consciously we will be in a rush while writing answers. But every 20 minutes or 30 minutes, we can have that conscious push to say that, okay, we need to little bit moderate our pace so that the examiner understands our words properly. And the multiple benefits of writing an answer every day is that you can improve your presentation as well. Because after writing that answer, after seeing the extra content from the internet, at final you can see, okay, I've written this answer like this, where could I improve my presentation? Whether I could have underlined any particular line, or whether this space can be utilized in a much effective way. So I think for presentation, the daily answer writing practice itself will help.
So, for example, there was on climate change. First part, the statement was about a global context kind of question on climate change, but the question was more Indian context. So, how should we address like people who statement should 10 mark question should be like you want the page to address statement separately because global and Indian are different, or should we like start writing the Indian context include the points global?
Okay. So the question posed by the candidate was that if there is a statement based question where we have statement in the first part followed by a question in the second part, and if the statement is more regarding a global perspective, but whereas the question is regarding Indian perspective, how should we properly structure the answer? So I think it is a very relevant question. And in this context, I think, as you said, the first quarter of the page can be filled to addressing the tone of the question in the global context, as in so and so events are happening in the global context. Meanwhile, this has been occurring in India as well. And the second part of the question can be started like in the Indian context. We can start writing about Indian context, but wherever possible, we need to show the correlation between so and so is happening in the global area as well as in India. For example, forest fires. While we are writing points about forest fires, we can say that the heat waves have increased, impacting forest fires. That is a global phenomenon as well as an Indian phenomenon. We can give 2 examples. For example, California forest fires, and in India, 1 example. So by means of that, one way is to set the tone and address the tone in the first quarter of the page. And secondly, but the major demand of the question is in the Indian context. So in the second part, we can write about the Indian context, but wherever possible, we can bring a small correlation with the global events. Right. Okay. I think the candidate is asking about when we are writing PYQs, whether we need to go topic wise or whether year wise. Am I right? Okay. I would suggest that we need to go topic wise, because while starting, we start by writing various subsections of a particular syllabus, right? For example, if we are starting to write about GS1, we start with history, then we move on to art and culture, then we move on to society and as such. So I would suggest that start with the themes, but make sure that every theme has particular year covered. For example, if you are taking history, we allot 3 days for history. Today we can write 2024 question on history. The next day we can write 2023 question on history. And the third day we can write 2022 question on history. So by means of that, you are primarily targeting the theme, but also we are answering various years of the question. Right.
I have doubts that this time.
Right.
I'm very retro writer in my knowledge.
Okay.
So, what is the way for which to time?
Okay. So the question posed by the candidate was how to improve. I would suggest that first write the answer without any read a particular topic, write a particular answer without any preconceived notions, but try to finish it in since you are starting, take 15 minutes for 10 marker. Whatever you are able to write in 15 minutes, write it. Then the second part, you set a time limit before. Don't leave it open ended, because if you leave it open ended, you would want more content, more content, more content. But I'm saying set a time limit, 10 minutes for a particular. If you have written 4 points, in 10 minutes probably you can take 3 or 4 points. But what happens is that to cover more points, you spend 15, 20, 30 minutes. So ultimately you will get 10 points. But how are you going to make use of the 10 points is a real question. So I would suggest that set time boundaries for every part of your preparation. For example, if you are reading PYQs, 10 minutes for me to analyze PYQs. If you are writing an answer daily, maximum at the beginning is 15 minutes. Whatever you are able to deliver in that 15 minutes, do it. And 10 minutes, set the boundary, 10 minutes for reading the post writing answer, you read the content. So by means of this, you are making your process efficient. And also in the back of your mind, it will be like, okay, there's only 10 minutes, you'll automatically make the process more efficient. So I would suggest that set time boundaries for every particular process in your preparation. Are there any other doubts?
Then I think I will add some points.
Sure, ma'am.
Can I?
Sure.
So to just add on a few points to some of the questions which you've asked, right? Okay, there was a question on format. The standard format, if you're going to ask, just keep number of points per question. For example, if you're getting a 10-mark question, you can keep like you have to write 10 points. 15-marker question means you have to write 12 points. Okay? And 10-marker questions can even be hanging points. Suppose you're writing a question on history. On that event, if you are knowing only 5 points, before that what happened, some 2 points. After that what happened, 2 points. Like that maybe you can take. For example, you're getting a question on non-cooperation movement. So you write something on non-cooperation movement previously and after. Like that you can add on. So you more target format. For example, if you're taking, say, you are, it is not like a very static format that you can follow. For keeping a format, as he had rightly suggested, working on themes and keeping PYQs will be very, very helpful. So that could be one part. Okay. A second question is regarding relevance. You had asked a question. You can also write the relevance parallelly. For example, you are writing a point, write the point and then write the relevance immediately. That is also another way of writing. Okay. So point, relevance. In fact, you can even do criticisms questions also like that. Okay. It's not necessary to go in a linear order. First you write all the points and then you write the relevance or the criticism. You can even do it then and there. Okay. That's also an accepted way of writing. Then So you had asked a question, what if I don't know? I don't know a question regarding Mission Karma Yogi, and they have asked me a question. So questions are only asked on flagship programs where their investment is more than 100 crore rupees. Okay. And usually 100 to 600 crores, this is what, and you will get an idea from the economic survey. Something where the government has invested and is asking all the states and districts to be implementing some program, like say the Gati Shakti question that was asked previously, or the metro rail projects which they have asked. These are the areas where the questions are going to come. So only flagship programs where the investment is done on a massive level, they are going to ask questions. Okay. So you don't need to be scared, because each and everything we can't read. But you, as he had rightly pointed out, sometimes the first half of the question you don't know, but from the second half of the question, you will be in a position to make up at least some generic points. Because 1 mark changes 19 ranks. So even if I get 1.5 marks for a question, we don't know how much they give, but you are not going to get penalty for writing a wrong answer. But if you do something relevant, maybe you'll get 1 extra mark. So we always fight out till the last moment, because 1 mark can actually pull us to the interview. So if you know the second part of the question, at least you can try attempting. But say, for example, there was previously a few years back a question on cryosphere, and there was a question on allelopathy, okay, in GS3. So such kind of questions you don't know means you can't write. It is better to take the time of those questions to write some other question beautifully. Totally you don't know. If you write something also, you might not get any mark. You're not going to get penalty, but that time you can take it for another question. So it's a conscious choice which we make based on the quality of the answers which we've written in the first part of our mains. We can't take this decision now. So to leave a question or to write a question, you'll always decide, say after 11:30 or after say 5 o'clock, because the last half hour is where you get that push. Okay. So taking that call, you should be doing it at that time. Okay. Fine. Then, so you had asked a question on statement and global level and India level. A good way is any statement question they are asking, like in the light of the statement, something they are asking, what you do is you explain that particular statement, set the context, and then global has India in it. Okay. So you make a connection between global to India. So every point that you want to write, you start with a global perspective and then you give an Indian perspective parallelly. So that way you will always be able to establish a connection. Okay. So any statement question, any quotation mark question, ethics or any other paper, even in optional, whenever a statement is given, we are expected to first explain the particular statement and then link that statement to the nature of the question that they are asked. Because otherwise, why are they giving that part of the question? Okay. So we have to set the context. So that is to set the context to the question. All right. Okay. Then you had asked a question regarding time management, that you have a problem with writing. You're taking 1 hour for writing. Actually, you're having a fear of missing out. Don't be scared. Okay. First and foremost, 50 minutes if you're going to take for a thing, that means you're trying to be perfect. Drop the perfection. If you're perfect, you can't clear mains. Keep that very, very clearly. You're expected to manage everything well as a bureaucrat, rather than getting too perfect and getting 7 marks or 15, or 12 marks in one question and getting a 0 in another question. I would always want a candidate to have 4 marks in every 10 marker rather than 3 in one question and 7 in another question. They always want people who can balance things. So that means you're investing too much of time and you're too bothered for an answer to be perfect. Drop that perfection. When you drop that perfection, your time will improve. Okay. And as he had suggested, to partition the time, always measure the time. Today, if you're taking 1 hour for writing something, that means you are exceeding the time limit. What you can take 12 minutes, you're taking 1 hour means you're taking 5 times the time. So you know that that is your weakness. Okay. So you have to work on that. Second is your handwriting. Maybe one thing which is pulling down your speed. Okay. Sometimes we have a tendency to write with a lot of pressure. So just check if you are pressing and writing. That might give you like say 1 minute extra or 2 minutes extra. So just try checking on that. And then your pen. It could also be a very huge deteriorating factor in your speed. Just work on that. Just check if these are the things. If it is only the first part, that means you have to drop your perfection. Aim at attempting every question that you have to complete it within that particular time. So today you're taking 50 minutes means next 1 month, you should reduce it to 45 minutes. Next month, 40 minutes. You have to keep reducing on that thing. That will be the way that you can do. Okay, fine. Then there is one candidate who had asked a question that is, on handwriting. Is handwriting a very important part? I think now he has asked this
Right.
question. So handwriting is important. If you have a pathetic handwriting, please go for handwriting class. Okay, because we are not having a typing examination. A person who's above the age of 50 has to read whatever you are writing. So handwriting is important. It is not meaning beautiful handwriting. Someone is writing something, can another person understand what they are writing? That level of handwriting is still fine. For example, you can just go to the toppers copies. There will be a person called Kode Samir Prakash. He had somewhere around 41st rank last time. If you look, his handwriting is not beautiful, but he would have spaced his handwriting. You can just go to Shankar's website and you can just check mains answer copies under GS mains thing. There'll be topper copies. You can just check in that. Okay. So check for Kode Samir Prakash's handwriting. It is not a beautiful handwriting, but still he got into IRTS and he upgraded into IAS this year. So it's not about beauty, it's about legibility of what you're writing. So if your handwriting is readable, that itself is more than enough. I think that's all are the other questions. Just ask one.
Are there any other doubts that I can possibly clear regarding your preparation? If not, we can end with the session. Okay. So the question is how case studies can be approached in ethics. First thing is that case study is for 20 marks and the ideal time would be to answer it in 15 minutes. What is happening is that of late for case study, they itself are giving the sub questions like what are the ethical issues involved in it, B, what is your course of action regarding that. Firstly, we need to address all the subparts appropriately, giving it equal importance. And second is to make sure that in every point that we write, we have to make it ethically relevant. Usually what happens is that we fill up the pages using the general content. That might be right, but for ethics, we need to add more ethical terms, such as if there is a case study regarding lapse in administration or relevant to that, we have to mention lack of accountability, absence of transparency, and there is no proper feedback mechanisms, or there is absence of social audits. So in case studies, one suggestion would be that in every point that we write, we need to make sure that we make it ethically relevant. How to make it ethically relevant? We need to add more ethical terms in our answers. It can be the basic values or the fundamental foundational values that we are reading, but we need to make sure that it is being applied in the particular case study. And while reading case studies, it might be long, but the suggestion would be that attempt it like an RC. In CSAT, we attempt RC in a very fast manner, just absorbing the content. In case study, what happens is that to make sure that we address all the subparts, we tend to spend that extra 2 minutes or 3 minutes. That might actually take out the time that is required for other questions, right? So like preparing for RC, case studies also can be prepared by faster reading. So faster reading comes from practice. So if we are whether you are writing the answer or not, but at least try practicing reading the case studies in a very fast manner. Okay. I think I've answered all your doubts, right? And I hope the session was relevant to you. It was worth the 2 hours that you spent. And I would like to thank Shankar IAS Academy for giving me this opportunity where I could share my experiences, and especially Rajita ma'am and Shiv Shankar sir, who have been fundamental in organizing the entire event. And again, my personal gratitude to you, ma'am. And thank you.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you so much for your valuable inputs. I'll just like to give a brief summary of what he had discussed so far so that we can conclude the session. So initially we were discussing about content. So he had spoken to us about 2 parts, that is identification of themes and identification of the directives to the question. The second part is we were analyzing some questions from 23 and 24 paper, and from that we got an inference that we have to break down the question, identify the sub parts to the question. This year we saw the trend where
a 10 marker had at least 4 subparts also, which is very unusual when compared to the previous years. And then we also discussed that we will have to work in terms of the time that we are taking. So the audience who had participated had suggested that they were taking 12 minutes for a 10 marker and 15 minutes for a 15 marker. So he had given some strategies regarding how to come within 7 or 8 minutes and 12 minutes for a 15 marker. The next part of the discussion that we had was on relevance, how to give relevant answers. And then we went to the UPSC's notification and we've identified 3 important factors from the notification, how to tag the correct, general awareness part. So from around us, from whatever we see in terms of photos, whatever we see in terms of general things that are happening around us, how do we identify questions and how do we work on that? So we spoke about the fast tag and the Aurora question in that delight. And we also spoke about curiosity, where from photos that people share, we have a curiosity. We start working on the background for those questions and how that can itself become some question on asteroids, etc. Then we spoke about current affairs, whatever comes in the paper, what part of current affairs we have to take. Then from there, we went to the importance of the PYQs and how from the PYQs we have to identify and come up with a set of themes so that repeatedly asked themes we saw, like back to back on Vedic society, we had questions. Back to back, we had questions on both in 23 and 24, we've had questions. So we have to broadly identify themes. Then we went to an area where we had picked up various themes in the question and how to go for identifying dimensions, like further sub-dimensions, like we took a question on globalization and women and connecting that. Of course, there was a previous question also. If I'm not wrong, it was previously globalization and old-aged women was asked. And I think globalization and women, one more, actually they had asked another question on married women a few years back. If I'm not wrong, 2014 or 15, they had asked a question. So this nature of subcategorizing the questions has been a latest trend. We call that as layering of questions. A question has multiple layers and we just need to target that we are addressing every layer. Okay. And then after that, the candidates had asked a lot of questions, broadly speaking, on format of writing, on relevance of answers, time management, evaluation metrics, then what if I don't know, presentation enhancement, statement questions, PYQs, whether it is topic wise or year wise, then writing and handwriting and all that. And then the last question that we took was on case studies, and you gave a point on making it similar to RC skimming and scanning and trying to work on that whole thing. This is largely the agenda of what we had discussed. And I hope that this will help you to push your main score further. Thank you, Sai. Thank you once again. Thank you one and all. One for all those students who have come offline and all the students who had participated online as well. We've shared the PPTs to your relevant groups. Okay, what sir had discussed today, we have shared it to the relevant groups. And for the online participants also, we have shared the PPT onto this discussion, WebEx discussion we have discussed. So if you have anything else, you can feel free to reach out to us. You know where to reach us out. You can reach out at Moksha ID. You have the email ID. It is available on the website. You can just reach out. Anything you want, you please feel free to connect. Okay. And if you have any further clarifications or doubts, or you want to interact with anyone, you can just let us know so that we can connect you with the relevant people. And we are in the Moksha building. That's another building parallel to this. That is where we sit for the mains copy evaluation and all that. So if you have anything, you can walk in morning 9:30 till evening 6 o'clock. Someone or the other from the mentoring team, from the evaluation team will always be available. So you just need to just approach. Whatever help you need, we are there to help you out. All right. Okay. So Sai, thank you. And we wish you all the very best. We'll see you once again with your IAS tag. And that time we will have another session before you go to the foundation course. All the very best.